It's an absolutely mind-blowing day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Wizards of the Coast has just announced their 3-year plan. We're talking dozens of new products with some really cool stuff tucked in there. On top of that, we have a brand new type of booster called Beyond Booster. You're genuinely not going to believe how amazing the next few years are going to be. I'm shocked.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings! Owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for a truly glorious installment of Mega Magic News. For the first time in forever, I have pages and pages of awesome stuff to talk about. This isn't a list of mistakes that Wizards has been making, and after going over everything, I genuinely am heartened. I feel better about the future of Magic because Wizards is actually making some good moves, some big changes that should lead to a healthier game. And it feels fantastic to be able to go hype mode. So throw away your hater hats, strap on your hype helmets, because we're going to town. We have so much to talk about. 3 years worth of Magic. Let's go. So what's going down? We have a whole slew of things. First things first, let's take a look at the lineup of stuff we're just going to talk about from 2023. In this image, you can see Ravnica Remastered, Murders at Karlov Manor, Fallout, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, Modern Horizons 3, Assassin's Creed, Bloomborough, Bloomborough, I can't even wait, and Duskmourn House of Horrors. So this is just the 2023 startup. We're going to start at the top of the list here, okay? So first thing is Ravnica Remastered. Now this is taking all of the different Ravnica action and cramming it together. So if you missed out on the earliest days of Ravnica, here's your chance. You can get the early cards, plus on top of that, they're including old bordered versions of the original Shocklands and other cards from throughout Ravnican history. So if you're really into Ravnica, bam, you get that. That's a pretty obvious one. The next item on the list is Murders at Karlov Manor. Now this is a murder mystery, and this is the first exploration into Wizards of the Coast. Well, I suppose Wild of Eldraine is kind of the first exploration, but this is more of an exploration into the new design philosophy of Wizards, because the Wilds of Eldraine is already in an established world, kind of doing what we're used to. It's following up with what happened after the Phyrexian War. So the Kenriths that were ruling over everything have been wiped out, and now the Kenrith kids, Will and Rowan, have to pick up the pieces and try and save Eldraine. So that's going to be interesting. But Murders at Karlov Manor is where we move into Wizards of the Coast, changing things up and going, okay, we can have different things going on in different worlds. So this is going to be a murder mystery that is set on Ravnica, but instead of following all the Ravnican guilds and all the stuff we're normally accustomed to, all that is put aside for basically a Clue variation in Magic the Gathering. And they're actually going to be doing a Clue board game version as well that ties in with it. I gotta say, I'm down for it. I like mystery. I think Clue is a bit of a goofy game. I always thought it was funny where it's like, yo, we're just playing this game where I figure out if you gornt somebody with a lead pipe over there in the library. It's quaint, right? And the Clue movie is also pretty entertaining if you haven't seen it. A little bit of a hidden gem. So them doing Clue, I'm cool with that. The whole idea of the murder mystery, there's going to be a mystery in the story of the set, but they're also going to bring in mystery mechanics, which is super interesting to me. After that, we've got Fallout. Talk about a story-rich environment except for Fallout 76, where they're like, you guys get to be the NPCs. We didn't write a story. Like, that is a big drop the ball moment for a franchise that is very much about story. For real, if you've never heard, like, Fallout lore or whatever, there's a channel, Oxhorn, where he goes into it. Like, there's hours and hours of it. I had no idea how hooked into it I would get. But there's a lot going on with Fallout, the Steel Brotherhood, living out in the wastelands and things like that. So this one is going to come out as 4 commander decks representing 4 different factions. And I gotta say, I'm super curious. Now the next set is something I would have thought, that gut reaction, I would have been like, no thanks, no thanks. But actually, after thinking it over, turns out I'm jazzed about this too. Outlaws of Thunder Junction. That is a fun name to begin with. And that is also a crazy concept of, check it out, we're doing a Wild West frontier style world, but the idea is because of the omen paths now, the population of this world is going to be villainous, right? So you're going to have all the villains go to this place to hang out. It's got that kind of frontier theme to it. And they're bringing a bunch of characters from throughout Magic's history on in there. So they did this kind of, I'll put it up on the screen, this little shadowed outline of a number of individuals. You can guess at some of them. Who do we got there? Is that Huatley? Who knows? Does it look like Tiny Bones at the end? Yeah, that's probably Tiny Bones. Vraska is a dead giveaway, right? So this is a fun concept. The whole Wild West, choo-choo, I got the magic bullets. That to me kind of ties in to the Wax and Wayne concept that I read from the Sanderson novels. It kind of primed me up a little bit more. So admittedly, the whole Wild West thing doesn't feel like traditional Magic, but we're in a new era of Magic where they're going all over the place with it. And the idea, like the artwork that I've seen, Buddy driving the carriage with the skeleton flaming claws coming out of it, it evokes some really cool flavor. So I'm thinking they might actually be able to pull it off. Now, let's talk about Modern Horizons 3, the set that's probably going to make the biggest splash out of everything that's coming in 2024. I don't know if I said 2023 earlier, but yeah, it's 2024, the lineup we're talking about. So, Modern Horizon 3 is going to be bringing in double-faced cards. They're going to slap it on Arena. Obviously, when it comes to the Modern Horizon sets, these sets are intended to essentially create a rotation in Modern. Let's be very real about it. Wizards of the Coast has clearly signaled their intention to get their fingers into every format that exists and not leave them to naturally grow. So Modern Horizons 3 is going to have a bunch of powerful shake-up cards in it and a bunch of DFC action. There is an amazing piece of artwork you need to see from it. Ob Nixilis on a throne made out of angel wings, bro. I don't know if this is like him left on Capenna and what he's been doing with his time, if this is him as the captive kingpin, but man, the flavor of a demon on like a throne made of angel wings is incredible. Now, I mentioned boosters beyond, or beyond boosters, or a new type of booster. I don't even know if I said the specific type of booster, but we're getting a new type of booster, and they're called beyond boosters. We'll be getting them alongside the Assassin's Creed tie-in. So Wizards of the Coast is doing a full-on Assassin's Creed set with actual booster packs. It's going to feature characters from throughout the history of Assassin's Creed. Now, I only played the first couple of those. I really loved the first Assassin's Creed, and then I played one of them where the beginning of it was so buggy that I could barely make it through the tutorial, and the game was really just, put it off to the side. But Assassin's Creed has a lot of fun flavor to it, and it makes me want to I'm going to do a leap of faith off the table and just scream like an eagle as I leap down. Now, beyond boosters are going to be non-draft boosters. So I'm not sure exactly what they kind of represent because we already have draft boosters, set boosters, and collector boosters. And they're saying that these beyond boosters won't be draftable, but set boosters and collector boosters aren't draftable. They're not saying that there's going to be like particular set cards in the beyond boosters. So it's kind of confusing, honestly. It feels like maybe they're going to do something a la Aftermath where you get fewer cards in the pack, but it's not going to be just hacked off of a previous set because Aftermath really did feel like it was just grabbed as a chunk from the previous set. So I'm really, really curious as to what exactly a Beyond booster can even be. Is it just a set booster, but specifically for Universes Beyond? Is that the only reason it's called a Beyond booster? Is because it won't just feature an occasional card from Universes Beyond? Actually, you know what? Let me just flip ahead in my notes to talk about that real quick. Universes Beyond is using a little bit of different terminology now. So they're using terms inserts versus overlays. And the difference is, right now we know concepts as reskins, where you go, okay, this is just a reskinned Urza, or this is a reskinned Goat Tickler. So reskins they're going to start calling overlays, where you have this guy, but it's actually this original Magic card. And inserts are going to be brand new cards that you see coming along, like the Jurassic Park stuff that we'll talk about in a moment after we get past what we're talking about next, which is Bloomborough, the thing I am mega hyped about. All right, this is the peak hype for me of everything I saw from the announcement, bro. You may have already seen this artwork that I'm putting up on the screen here, where you can see this mouse facing off against this giant flaming wolf. So, Bloomborough is a world where there are no humans. The equivalent of humans are like this mouse, I should say. So the mice are like 1/1s, all right? That wolf, that could be like a 4/4 or a 6/6 or maybe even an 8/8 based on the metrics of this world. So you use creatures in the same scale. If you look at the mouse and you look at the wolf, they're roughly the same size that would be on Earth. But if you came to this plane of existence without being like a resident of it, it's not going to change the size of you like it would if you went to Segovia, for example, where there's magic that literally shrinks you down. So you would go to this world and you would be the size of this mouse staring up at this giant wolf. So this world has no human beings. It's got full-on fantasy flavor, and the concepts that they have are incredible. Take a look at this necromancer squirrel. It is so epic, man. I have never seen a more menacing squirrel in my life. It truly looks like it's mastered the dark arcane arts. How exciting is that, for real? I am so jazzed up about this set, bro. It's gonna be mega epic. All right, after that, we've got Duskmourn, the House of Horrors. This one is interesting on a very particular level for me. So I'll explain what it is before I tell you why it's interesting to me. So the idea behind this is the plane is just one gigantic, like a mansion. It's a gigantic house of horrors, and it's done in a in like a modern, a more modern-ish horror kind of styling. So it will evoke like maybe the 70s or 80s level horror you gotta worry up. But the idea of being like trapped inside this house that you can't get out of, that's an entire plane. And I mean, when you look at the artwork for it, this crazy stairwell with this bony moth-like being above it, it really does evoke some crazy level horror. But what really interests me is the underlying flavor of the fact that this is an artificial plane. Artificial planes are something we rarely get in Magic the Gathering. You had the original artificial plane of Phyrexia. That was the first one we knew about. We don't even know who created it. It was a dead dragon planeswalker. Yawgmoth found Phyrexia and took it over. But it's an artificial plane based purely on black mana. And then you had Sarah's Realm, which was an artificial realm based purely on white mana that actually ended up collapsing and being absorbed into a Power Stone. And if you want to know that story, I actually covered the entire story of all that over on Fantasy Geographic. So if you want to hear the old Magic the Gathering lore, go check out the Brothers War and the Time Stream Chronicles over on Fantasy Geographic to hear all about that crazy stuff. But this is a new artificial plane. Who created it? What sustains it? Because something has to sustain these planes. They can't just exist in a void. So it's a super compelling concept to me, right? Now, I mentioned Jurassic Park. Some of you might be going, yo, what's this? Well, Lost Caverns of Ixalan. That is actually coming out later in 2023. So we're jumping all over the place. Doctor Who timey-wimey style. Now, with Lost Caverns of Ixalan, apparently what they did originally was they had designed a completely separate world. And then they decided, wait a minute, this could actually be the under part of Ixalan. This really does tie into Wizards' fear of trying out new worlds and just kind of want to take something familiar that they already own and is liked by some players but didn't do that well, because Ixalan did not do well when it came out. It was considered a failure level set along the same lines as Kamigawa and Lorwyn, and relegated to, we're not going back to you. But they said, hey, honestly, what it really feels like is they said, what if we could bring the magic of Zendikar back? The original Zendikar underground exploration, let's try and mimic that. And so then they built a set that was based on that and went, you know what, let's shunt it over into Ixalan. I'm okay with that, actually. The idea is we've seen the upper levels of Ixalan, we've seen the Mayan temples, all that. It's kind of been laid waste by Phyrexia. So underneath it all, we've got a completely different world going on. But going forwards, we're going to see less of this kind of thing as Wizards has way more freedom to explore different planes. Before, how it worked was we would go to a world, we were tied to that world and that world's mechanics. Going forwards, we're now allowed to go to multiple worlds and sets and have mechanics that are completely independent of the world. So, for example, the Murders at Karlov Manor set that we're doing is set in Ravnica. However, it's not going to be using the guilds, it's not going to be using the guild mechanics and the mechanics that are from Ravnica. It may take one or two if it feels like playing with them, but it's not beholden to calling back the past when we go to the plane in that way, which gives them more freedom to create. So, with the Ixalan situation, and actually maybe this Jurassic Park is why they decided to shift it into Ixalan as well. They are doing a Jurassic Park crossover with 2 secret layers, and there will be special Jurassic Park insert cards as well that will show up in packs of Ixalan the same way that the Transformer stuff showed up in Brothers War. Now, I love gigantic, big, stompy creatures. I love big, dumb dinosaurs. So for me, the Jurassic Park thing, I thought the original Jurassic Park movie did a really great job of giving the immensity and the terror of humans having to deal with dinosaurs. It's surprising how something as simple as a glass of water sitting on the dashboard and just the water like rippling from the tremor shakes of a T-Rex walking, it's so simple and subtle, but at the same time, it's just so evocative that Jurassic Park has really stuck with me. A few moments, you know what I mean? Like those kind of moments really stick with me. So, if you're just going to bring in dinosaurs outside of it, it doesn't even feel like a departure from Magic. If you're going to bring in like Jeeps with the Jurassic Park branding on it, then yeah, that definitely does fall outside the realm of Magic. We're going to find more stuff in the future that does that as well. Now, Khans of Tarkir is getting a full arena release. They're taking the entirety of the Khans of Tarkir and just going, boom, we're putting it on arena. On top of that, they've stepped up their plans for Pioneer on Arena, and they're actually going to put it out by year's end. So by the end of this year, they're going to have all of the staples and important cards for Pioneer. So I have to take back what I said before, that they were going to drag this out for like 6 years with Explorer and never give you Pioneer because they don't want you to have a non-rotating format. The truth is, the announcements that they've made about Arena have left me way more positively like angled towards Arena. I think that they're actually coming to terms with the fact that Arena is like, at one point it felt like they were, Arena's the big deal. That's where the Pro Tour is. That's where Standard is. This is what matters. You can play other formats, but if you want to be like up to date and whatever, you need to be on Arena. It's the main thing. Paper can be secondary to it. Arena got its releases first, and it always felt like there was this tug of war and battle between the two, where they were always competing for your time, competing for your money. But it seems like Wizards of the Coast has decided to integrate them in a way that's very attractive to people like me. Listening to them, they're talking about, I've complained about the Mastery Pass and how you always have to log in and constantly be going, bam, we got to go in every day. Well, now they're talking about how you can have one account for going to Magic physical events and the same account for Arena, where you can literally go to Friday Night Magic, and when you log into Arena the next day, it says, yo, you played in Friday Night Magic. Here's your experience and stuff to move you towards the Mastery Pass. So you literally get rewarded in the digital game for playing the physical game. This is how it should have been all along. This is a very, very smart move, because it took me, somebody who was rabidly anti-Arena, and I'm looking and I'm like, so you're bringing in Pioneer, right? You're really doing that. You're also at the same time, they're evaluating how do we bring single player experiences for people who want to be able to play Magic and they don't want to have to deal with playing all these other people. They want to test their decks out. The Sparky situation doesn't work. They're also looking at how do we bring in multiplayer games, 3, 4 players. Commander, they're considering developing additional versions of Arena or somehow marrying them together. Genuinely, it seems like they're putting a lot of thought into it. And this whole announcement, even just the way they did this announcement, it all screams that they're trying harder. This wasn't some disorganized announcement. It all flowed properly. It had a ton of information. We're dealing with a 3-year story arc. They said that they are committing themselves to the lore. And as somebody who literally has a Magic the Gathering lore channel, and if you haven't checked it out, there's hours and hours of epic Magic lore. Go check it out. I'm hyped. The Magic lore is starting for Wilds of Eldraine in a couple of days as well, so we'll be firing that up. Get ready. Apparently things are going up in that regard. Now, let's move on to the next page of notes I have. Now we're going to start talking about 2025. And in 2025, we're getting Innistrad Remastered, which again, Ravnica Remastered, Innistrad Remastered, same kind of thing, right? After that, we're getting Tennis. This is not the name of the set. If you don't know how Wizards of the Coast does things, they have code names for future sets out, and they do them alphabetically. So it goes T, U, V, and so on, right? And right now they're doing sports themes. So every set will have a code name that is a sports theme. So Tennis is where we're at the beginning of 2025. Now this is going to be a death race using the Omen Pass. This one is going to be wonky because it's got like muscle cars and stuff in it, which feels cars and helicopters, all that still feel really strange and outside the normal realm of Magic for me. It's like when they add Spelljammer onto D&D. Yeah, it's a part of it, but it feels odd to me. So we'll see how that pans out. It's going to be interesting because it goes through 3 different worlds. So this is a race that passes through 3 different planes of existence, which actually conceptually is a really funky idea. So I'm curious to see how that will be executed. And apparently when it comes to the world, it's going to be 2 worlds that we've gotten to properly visit in sets, and 1 world that we've only ever seen on the periphery. So that is pretty neat. Right, that part of it. Admittedly, the muscle car part, I'll have to see how they do it. You put the right character in it, I might actually get a kick out of it, right? Then we've got the Ultimate set, and this is the best of both Tarkirs. So this is Tarkir, like it's called, the code name is called Ultimate. I'm not sure how that counts as a sport. Maybe I missed a word or something, just writing down the best of both Tarkirs. Not sure. I was hastily scribbling down notes. Their announcements were over half an hour long, right? So it may have a slightly different code name, but they're going back to Tarkir, but they're taking all the Tarkir stuff and bam, 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 slapping it together to make the best of Tarkir. And I like that because when it comes to these worlds, there's only so much that actually matters. A lot of the uncommons and commons are draft chaff. So not seeing them, but seeing all the best stuff crammed together, that works pretty well for me. After that, we've got Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy's coming to Magic. It's going to be a booster release, so it's going to have its own full-on set. I presume that's going to be beyond boosters, but that wasn't specifically stated. Also, the entirety of the Final Fantasy stuff will end up on Arena. When it comes to them porting stuff over, they don't always bring everything from every set, right? So, what's the next thing? Volleyball. This is another weird one, mentioning the Spelljammer stuff. So, this is the 3rd part of the arc, so I guess I didn't mention this. When it comes to the next 3 years, we're doing a 3-year story arc. The first year of the arc is called the Omen Path arc, and that actually starts with Wilds of Eldraine, right? And then the Dragonstorm arc starts in the next year. And then the 3rd arc they haven't told us the name of because it would be too spoilery. But we're getting a 3-year story that's told in 3 different arcs. We'll see how well that pans out. Fingers crossed, because admittedly, when it comes to these storylines, War of the Spark and the Phyrexian Invasion both just ended with the bad guy lost at the NK, and it didn't really feel like that built up. But They know that. They've dedicated themselves more to the lore, and clearly they recognize that there is value in lore, because look at how much they can sell other people's lore for, right? Lord of the Rings and all that other stuff. So I am heartened in that regard. Now, volleyball, this start of the third arc, is a top-down space opera set. So we're talking full-on outer space. I mean, if it hints at some Fifth Element stuff, I really did like the Fifth Element. That was a funky movie. Aside from, well, I mean, he was meant to be annoying, wasn't he? So he did a good job too. Never mind. Chris Tucker did a good job of being truly obnoxious in that movie. All right, and then we've got wrestling. Wrestling is summed up in one word: Lorwyn. We're going back to Lorwyn, but the language that was used said it's like the Kamigawa setup, right? So we're basically going to go back to Lorwyn, but it's not really going to be the Lorwyn that we know. They're going to just kind of repurpose it. We'll see what that turns out to be, though, because Lorwyn is a beautiful setting. So if they don't turn it into a super technological, which, I mean, I don't know if the one right before that is a space set, it depends. If Lorwyn's like a futuristic set, if it's a fantasy set, yum. I'm down for that. After that, we've got yachting, starting with a Y, obviously. And this one, we're getting so far out that Rosewater's ranting, going, yo, this is as far as we're actually out designing. We're working on this right now. I can't really tell you that much. So it's set on Arcavios. We're going back to Strixhaven out in 2026. And then Ziplining is the name of the grand finale set that ends this 3-year story arc. 3 years from now. Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. And so that also marks the end of this particular set of code names, because as I said, they go alphabetically. Ziplining is the last in the alphabet, which means they're going to start again at the letter A, but pick a different category, like animals. So the next code could be Aardvark, for example. That's how they do things. And the only other thing that I have to mention, and for real, I may have straight up missed some of the news here, but there's a secret layer commander deck coming as well. You may remember recently I showed you an Eldrazi Angel and said, yo, they're going to do an Eldrazi secret layer to tie into the commander decks. Nope, absolutely not the case. They are doing an angel deck instead, right? And it's going to have like 5 new cards, and the rest will be whatever, just reprints, because Wizards does that now with those commander decks things, and it's become kind of a theme. But I do have to say that overall, looking at all the information that's provided, I have a much better view of Magic's future going forwards, and I'm way more positive than I thought it would be. It's pretty sweet, man. We talked about it in a live stream last night that I have uploaded over on my Hatcher channel, so I'll leave links here at the end if you want to go over and check that channel, and I'll leave links to Fantasy Geographic in case you want to go and dive in with some epic Magic lore. And you do want to get familiar with that channel, because we're going to be putting out 5 installments of the Wilds of Eldraine lore, and it's gonna be an amazing time. So I'll see y'all over there, or over here for the next video, or over on Hatcher for a YouTube stream later today, because I'm always doing something here. Big thanks to my patrons for supporting my channel. You guys rule. Now get on out of here.